This is the fourth and the final week of the message series, Living with Power. Hopefully it's the first in a series that will look at how we take the words of our parish vision and translate them into some form of action that we can begin to look at and assess over the coming years. The vision is printed on the newsletter, but it simply reads as an aspiration that we are a vibrant Catholic community fed by the Eucharist, empowered by the Holy Spirit, going out to make disciples. Their words at the moment, what we would like to see them is become something of a reality in how our community works. So we began by looking, first of all, focusing for the most part in this series on what does it mean to be a vibrant community. This became very evident in the readings from the Gospel, Matthew's Gospel, where Jesus was instructing his disciples about what they must do in order to witness to his message in the community as they went out to speak the good news. In the first week it started with that passage from the end of chapter 9, which said, Jesus looked at the crowds and felt sorry for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And then he said, pray the Lord of the harvest to send labourers into the harvest. Now, whenever I heard that as a child, and I suspect many of us when we heard that, it was always about sending more priests and religious to go and do the work of spreading the gospel. Wrong. That's what we thought, and I think that's what most of us were taught. But in fact, as we listen to Pope Francis and as we listen to the documents that have come out from the Church since the Second Vatican Council, with the awareness that we, each one of us, are the pilgrim people of God, the holy people of God, the priestly people of God. We have been, each of us, given that responsibility to witness to the gospel each and every day. And as I mentioned a number of times, when we think about the call to be a missionary disciple, most of us tend to kind of clam up and think, I can't do that. As I mentioned time and time again, and I suppose I'll almost sound like a broken record, there are 5 things you can do that are easy steps. The first is to do your job well, and that's all you need to do. No, it's not all you need to do, but you do it well. The second is to do good deeds without being asked. The third is to have a sign or a symbol that you can either wear or have in your workspace that says to somebody else that you have a faith, that you are a Christ follower. The fourth is to have a simple message that says, this is why I believe what I believe. And the fifth is when somebody comes to you and talks to you about something going wrong, something that they need to pray for, offer to pray for them and even dare to pray for them at the time. That's part of the way in which we can begin to be missionary disciples. We don't need to be theologians. Our gospel tonight, or today, started with that simple phrase, bless you, Father, for revealing these things not to the learned and to the clever, but to mere children. We don't have to be theologians to be witnesses to the gospel. We don't have to have super training. If you've got it, that's brilliant. Use your gifts. But if you're just a normal person, like so many of us, and all you have is a faith and a belief in Jesus, then you will do what God asks of you. And over these weeks, we've listened to Jesus challenge the disciples. We heard him say a couple of weeks ago, unless you leave father and mother to follow me, you cannot be my disciple. And that sounds challenging and almost sounds as if it's too difficult to be true. But as I don't know whether, hopefully I'm not diminishing the words of Jesus, but when we stop and think about it in the same kind of language as the air crew use on a plane, as they say to us, before you put your own mask on first, before you try to help somebody else, then if we follow Jesus, if we say yes to what the gospel means, then we have the chance to make a difference in the lives of others. We're not trying to do it by ourselves. We're not walking away from people. but we're becoming focused on Christ first. And if we stop and think, if we have a relationship with the Father, if we have a relationship with God, then being able to reach out to others is a much easier way of living the gospel. So it's not as if we reject them, but we must follow Christ first. He must be the focus, and then we can be open to the needs of others. And that's living the gospel. That's living the great command that Jesus gave us. And so when we stop and think about this whole journey, being a vibrant community means that we have to have that relationship with God. Then we have to reach out to others. To be a vibrant community, to live what it means to be gospel people, means also to say that we reach out to others. And that's the make disciples, which is the fourth of those concepts in that story. So what we have is this awareness that what are the steps that we can take to get to know and to have a relationship with God. We've done over the last couple of years a number of sessions of Alpha. Now, Alpha isn't the answer to everything, but it's a way in which people can make a step in learning something about what it means to have a relationship with God. It's not catechesis. It's not teaching people about the faith. It's rather allowing people the space in which to ask questions about what believing in Jesus means. And so it's not the final point. We have other things that are available. There's a program called Search from the Formed group. There is also Sycamore, which is a British group. And both of those allow people to go further. But Alpha is a first step. One of the things that we know in our world today is that people don't know who Jesus is. In fact, in the very first Alpha video, there's a question asked of some young people, and they try to give some answer. A cool dude who lived a long time ago, someone who had some wise sayings, and one fellow looks and said, "Did he play on the wing for Chelsea?" That must have been a Jesus somebody or other. But anyway, but there is this question, who is Jesus? And while we think that people should know, there are lots of people who don't know. And many of them are people that we know quite well, but have never talked to them about what faith means and what having a belief means. So having a step that we can take with Alpha is one thing that you can do to give a person the opportunity to know and begin a relationship with Jesus. As I said, it's not the final answer. Other things come after to help people on the journey. As I've said many times, there are three answers to a question when you ask somebody. Yes, maybe, or no. But if you never ask someone, the answer is always no. So what we need to do is to say, can we make this journey with people as they seek to have a relationship? So if we want to be a vibrant community, it's going to be vibrant because not only do we welcome people as they walk in the door, but we also make them feel as if they're part of a broader community that goes to reach out and to make a difference in our society. If we can do that by witnessing to the faith, by witnessing our belief, then we truly will make a difference. So the details about the Alpha program will be in the newsletter over the next couple of weeks, and they'll be there to help us find ways of reaching out to people. If you would like to be part of that process, feel free to say yes. If you would like to invite someone to come with you to be part of that process, please say yes. Because we need you, all of us, to say, reach out to other people. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that there was a lady who had asked 300 people, and all of them had said no, but she kept asking. And that's the difference. To ask is the first step. Not to ask is always to get a negative answer. Because one of the things that we need to recognise is that people don't come to a relationship with God without being invited. We saw that beginning of the gospel message where Andrew went to Jesus and said, "Where are you going? What are you doing?" And Jesus simply said to him, "Come and see." And that's what we need to give people the opportunity to come and to see. And then they will make a choice. Pope Benedict, in his encyclical Deus Caritas Est, which he wrote in December 2005, has a statement which is a really important statement. It tells us that being Christian is not the result of an ethical choice or a lofty idea, but an encounter with an event, a person, which gives life a new horizon and a decisive direction. So if we have Jesus in our life, then we have a purpose. And as we listen to the end of the gospel today, we're reminded that when we have that relationship with Jesus, then there is ultimate peace. As Jesus says to the disciples, "Come to me, all you who labour and are overburdened, and I'll give you rest." He tells us that when we come to him, life will be different. He doesn't say it's going to be easy or simple, but it will be different and it will be graced. Now, we've been given many graces. We've been given many gifts. God has filled us with blessings beyond measure. How we respond to those is how we respond to the needs of those around us, and how we reach out to make God's gift to us real as we live out his generosity and life.